Hello and welcome to the show that will be named later. It currently does not have a name, but I will be coming up with it later on. But all you need to know is this is going to be my chase race reviews, which means for the next 10 weeks, including this one right now, I will be uploading one of these long commentary-like videos that will be basically discussing, reviewing, looking ahead to, and basically all in all, talking about NASCAR and whatever happened the following week. So I'm currently recording this just a matter of minutes after watching the completion of the Richmond race. Here it's September 7th, and so this is the last race before the chase starts, and we got a lot of big storylines such as Carl Edwards getting his second win of the year, Jeff Gordon, a four-time champion, not making the chase by a narrow margin. Final caution that caused a lot of controversy between Clint Bowyer spinning out. Did he do it intentionally or not? So those are just among some of the many storylines that I will be talking about here this afternoon or this evening. So for starters, I'd like to start this episode off with just a quick disclaimer. This is my first time to ever doing these type of videos where I just sit down and talk for a long period of time, so you know it's going to be a little awkward at times. But just wanted to let you guys know, so brace right. It'll definitely get better, and judging by your comments that I see on this video, I will kind of adjust the way the format is for upcoming episodes. So that's just a quick disclaimer. So to start the thing, let's just talk about some basic highlights of the race here at Richmond. We start off the race with a 135-lap green flag run, in which is majorly dominated, at least at first, by pole sitter Jeff Gordon, but he quickly starts to fade, and by the end of this run, when we get the first caution, he's already back just on the edge of that top 10. So other big storylines coming in was Joey Logano was on the chase bubble. He had early problems. He fell a lap down early. He would ultimately finish 22nd. Jimmie Johnson, after starting dead last after missing qualifying in practice on Friday, he did not go anywhere and was quickly put a lap down. He finished the race back in, I believe, 40th position. So definitely not the way he wanted to get rolling here for the chase. So when the caution comes out for debris here on lap 135, we see pit stops, and Kurt Busch, who was leading at the time and looked to have probably the best race car, has just not a good pit stop, had a little bit of problems on the right rear. He loses 5 positions, so that'll be key later on. Definitely added to some of the Kurt frustration. So later on we're rolling. There's a second caution, and during that time we also see Jimmie Johnson have problems with his battery, I believe is what they ended up calling it. That just added to many of the struggles he already was having. That definitely did not help him. And then on lap 224, Jeff Gordon comes in for an unscheduled pit stop. He had been running pretty well. He'd started to fade. He was in the top 15 still, but this put him 2 laps down, but with the freshest tires on the racetrack. So he quickly drove his way back up to the lead lap, and just before the final caution the next caution that is caused when Jimmie Johnson blows a tire, Jeff Gordon had just beforehand reached the lucky dog spot. But unfortunately, this caution for the Jimmie Johnson's blown tire does not come at the most opportune moment for several guys in the midst of green flag pit stops, which ends up putting guys like Clint Bowyer, Kevin Harvick, Jeff Gordon, Kyle Busch, Casey Kane, Brad Keselowski, guys like that were running up in the top few positions, and also many of those guys on the chase bubble, puts them all in a hole. They're all trapped a lap down. They must take the wave around. This comes back out. This comes in to give Kurt Busch the lead, but on the pit stops right after that, he comes back out third. We'll talk about that in a little while, that his pit crew may be having some problems. Carl Edwards wins the race off pit road. He leads into the restart. And as the race winds down, Jeff Gordon, who I mentioned before, who had gotten the lucky dog earlier, he was now back on the lead lap, and I believe he restarted in the 12th or 13th position, I believe. He drives his way back up, and he's inside the top 10 late when it gets down to his 20 laps to go. Ryan Newman has caught the back bumper of Carl Edwards, and with the way the chase positions have settled out, Ryan Newman's at a point where he has to pass the 99 car to win the race if he wants to make the chase. With the way Logano and Jeff Gordon and everyone else is running, that's basically what's at stake for Newman. So with about 10 laps to go, Ryan Newman just blows past Carl Edwards and looks like he's on his way cruising to victory until Clint Bowyer spins out with 7 laps to go. This causes all the leaders to come in and pit, including Ryan Newman. And several guys take 2 tires, such as Paul Menard and Mark Martin. Both of them come out ahead of Ryan Newman, along with Carl Edwards and Kurt Busch, who had strong pit stops. Ryan Newman did not have the best of pit stops, and this would ultimately cost him. He comes out 5th on the final pit stops. Paul Menard leads with Carl Edwards on his outside. That sets up the final restart with just 3 laps to go. Paul Menard does not get going on the restart, and that allows Carl Edwards to pull away, and he ultimately will go on to win the race. And on this final restart, many interesting scenarios happened. We went from believing that Jeff Gordon would be in the chase and Ryan Newman would be in the chase, along with Casey Kane, to suddenly it's Jeff Gordon's not in the chase, Ryan Newman's not in the chase, and we're back to Joey Logano and Casey Kane being the 2 drivers in the chase, along with, I believe, Martin Truex Jr. getting that second wildcard spot. Sorry about that. So, in one restart, 3 laps, that craziness happened, so it was definitely very interesting to watch. So Carl Edwards gets his 2nd win of the season. Ryan Newman finishes 3rd, but loses the tiebreaker to Martin Truex Jr. for the 2nd wildcard spot. So Truex, with the 7th place finish, gets the 2nd wildcard spot. Casey Kane, of course, who has 2 wins, he gets the 1st one. Jeff Gordon ends up finishing 8th, which actually, if you look at everything he went through, was a great race, but unfortunately it was not enough. Joey Logano makes it in, beats the 24 by only 2 points. He finishes 22nd, but hey, it's enough for him. So that's your basic review of what happened during the race. So now we want to talk about just some key storyline things. I want to start with when he was heading into the chase. You're going to have your top 3 seeds are going to be Matt Kenseth, Jimmie Johnson, and Kyle Busch. Matt Kenseth, of course, leads the series with 5 wins. Jimmie Johnson and Kyle Busch, both have 4. So you got to look at those 3 to probably be your top 3 contenders heading in. But I'd look at guys like Carl Edwards. I'd give him a significant shot. He's 5th heading in. Kevin Harvick's the 4th place guy heading in, but I don't know. Harvick, he has not shown the consistency level that I think he needs to make a serious run at this championship. So I'd say Kenseth, Johnson, Busch, and probably Edwards, your top 4 contenders. And if I had to pick somebody else, Casey Kane maybe can come up there, but he's been too inconsistent. Clint Bowyer, I think he would have a serious shot, but I'm not really sure. Other guys up there, Joey Logano, Greg Biffle, I don't think either of them are really that serious contenders. They both have 1 win this year, but you just look at Logano going to finish 22nd. Greg Biffle had an okay run at the end, but recently he's been pretty lousy too. So I don't know. I think it's going to come down to just a handful of dudes. Another thing I wanted to mention is Jimmie Johnson. The only thing that I think coming into the chase, at least about a month ago, we all figured Jimmie Johnson would be the favorite heading in. We thought he might be the 1 seed, it'd be him or Kenseth, but Jimmy, the last month has just been horrible. It all started when he had those problems at Michigan. He's had the last 4 races. He's had all his races. He's finished 28th or worse in the last 4 races. He's had blown engines. He's been caught up in wrecks, blown tires. Just about any bad thing that can happen to him has happened to him in the last month or so. So that's when, and that actually caused him to lose the points lead. Actually, with the win tonight, Carl Edwards was the new points leader, but of course with the chase happening and the new stack up, Matt Kenseth is now the points leader. But it just goes to show you, Jimmie Johnson's really gone on a downhill slide. Just tonight, he had at least a couple races worth of problems in just a couple hundred laps. So you see, he started out with a bad starting position because he missed qualifying. Then of course he went a lap down early. Then later had to pit because they had a battery problem, had to switch out the battery, and then later on blew a tire. So I just can't imagine how much worse, how it could have gotten any worse or at all for Jimmie Johnson. Another thing I want to mention is Kurt Busch. They were watching the race. The guys in the booth kept mentioning Kurt Busch's pit crew being a concern, and when I first heard them mention it, I was just kind of like, oh, is it really that big of a deal? I mean, is this pit crew really that bad? And then on the very first pit stop, under caution, he loses 5 positions, and I was like, oh, well, never mind. Because I've always kind of had something against Kurt Busch. I don't really hate Kurt Busch as a person, but I just, as a driver, I swear, going back to earlier this year at Sonoma, when he dominated the race, and then about halfway through, under green flag pit stops, they tell him, literally, on the radio, watch your speed coming out of pit road. So, completely ignoring that, he gets caught speeding on pit road. And then, when he goes to serve his pass-through, he gets caught speeding again. So ever since that incident in Sonoma earlier this year, Kurt Busch has just kind of blown my mind with some of the bonehead moves he has done. I mean, I don't mean to make fun of him so much, but even you Kurt Busch fans, you understand where I'm coming from. He can be a great driver sometimes, but he's had at least a handful of things he's done this year where you're left shaking your head like, what was he thinking? I mean, his pit crew definitely, after seeing what happened tonight in a couple of situations where he did not have the best pit stops, I can understand he definitely doesn't have the best team, but that comes with being a single car team that's, not a big company. So, you're not going to have the best of the best. So, given the circumstances, I mean, Kurt Busch has done a great job. All credit to him. He was the 8th seed in the points coming in. He's going to be the 10th seed, actually, now that they restacked. But, I mean, you got to hand it to him. He did a great job making the chase this year. A lot of credit to him. But he has those moments every now and then where he'll be leading the race, obviously have one of the best cars out there, maybe the guy to beat, and he'll just do one thing that causes to just screw everything up. Like back at, I believe it was Michigan, he drove down onto the apron, or it wasn't Michigan, sorry, it was Kentucky, I believe. Drove down on the apron, slid up, and wrecked Keselowski. That was a big deal, and that was just, you're left thinking, what was Kurt Busch doing? I mean, so, I have problems with Kurt Busch in that respect, but I'm definitely impressed with his ability to come back and make the chase. That was very impressive. It's a disappointing night for Jeff Gordon, and of course all of you Jeff Gordon fans. I know there's a crazy amount of you. I get comments on my WE Cup Series races every single day, asking when Jeff Gordon's going to win another race in my series. And it hasn't happened yet, and you can almost ask the same question for the Sprint Cup Series in real life. When is Jeff Gordon going to win another race? A lot of people, you hear the analysts and everything on ESPN and Fox, they all seem to just not want to give up on Jeff Gordon just yet. And I respect them for that, because he is a 4-time champion. He's in his early 40s. He's not exactly old. He's definitely got probably at least 10 more years of racing if he wants left. But he's definitely going downhill, and I just gotta say, I don't think him not making the chase this year didn't come as that huge of a surprise for me. I mean, he made it in by the skin of his lucky underpants last year, and just the fact that you can't guarantee or bet on something like that happening 2 years in a row. So him not making the chase this year was not that big a surprise to me. You just look, he's just not in contention to win very many races anymore. And yeah, he has decent cars time to time. And he is a good driver. He's not, I mean, he's always going to be in contention to make the chase, but he's no longer a championship contender. I mean, I know all y'all Jeff Gordon fans are already probably putting in the comments right now how much you hate me for saying this, but I mean, you got to look at the numbers. I mean, Jeff Gordon has not been, it's been a few years since Jeff Gordon was a serious title threat, and I mean, you never know. He might come back next year and do great. You never know. I mean, but I'm just saying I'm not entirely surprised to see him not make the chase this year. Looked like he was going to be in the position, but circumstances didn't quite go their way. Other questions I heard about, or I saw on the TV, things that I personally thought was on the restart, the final restart between Carl Edwards and Paul Menard. Paul Menard on the inside lane was the control car. I'm sorry I don't have a video clip or anything for you, but if you saw the race, you probably know what I'm talking about, or you can go look at the highlights after this. But on the final restart, Paul Menard on the inside lane, Carl Edwards on the outside lane. Menard obviously kind of spins the tires a little bit. Nothing crazy. It wasn't like Jimmy Johnson bad or anything like that. But spun the tires just a little bit. And Carl Edwards gets about a half a car length in front of him and beats him to the line by about a half a car length. And so you're left wondering afterwards, why didn't NASCAR throw a penalty? Because it was clear he beat him. I mean, Menard didn't spin the tires that much. And I left myself, on TV they never really answered the question, but what I took from it is the only answer, reasonable, logical answer I could think of was when Carl Edwards started to get ahead of Menard kind of went up and actually bumped the 99 car a couple times before they crossed the start-finish line. So I kind of thought right there, I was like, well, I think since Menard went up and hit Edwards in the door, you got to give the guy a little slack. I mean, I don't know, I think Menard was kind of at fault in a lot of ways there. I mean, he was on older tires. So I'll forgive NASCAR for this call. I mean, it didn't really matter to me. But, so that was that. Another big controversial thing that you're definitely going to hear about at least a few more times in the news this week, if you keep up with it at all. Did Clint Bowyer intentionally spin out with 7 laps to go? So let's take a look at the scenario here. Before that happened, you had setting up to make the chase was going to be Ryan Newman and Casey Kane in those final 2 wildcard spots, and it looked like Jeff Gordon was going to be the 10th place. He was going to make it in on points. He spins out. Clint Bowyer spins out, and by spinning out, causes the restart in which his teammate, Martin Truex Jr., drives back into the chase. Ryan Newman, by losing the race, falls out of it. Jeff Gordon falls out of it as well because Joey Logano gained a few positions, therefore putting Joey Logano inside the top 10 and giving Martin Truex Jr. the last wildcard spot. So I feel like it could have been intentional because it ended up, it was the only way. You could argue that it was him trying to get his teammate Truex into the chase, but I don't know, looking at the replay, it definitely looked like it could have been a little forced. On the replay, it looked like Dale Earnhardt Jr. was really close on his left rear. Maybe didn't get into him. It was clear he didn't hit him, but he might have gotten him loose, kind of spun him around. But it's definitely one of those types of things where you're kind of left wondering what was there a real reasoning behind it? Because then in the end, it ended up helping him out. His teammate made the chase. And Jeff Gordon, who I think I don't know if this was actually part of his plan, if he had a plan, but Jeff Gordon, who we all know he's definitely had some questionable history with, did not make the chase as a result. So you can argue, oh, well, that means it was intentional, right? He was trying to let his teammate make the chase. But I was looking at it, and you just sit there and think, it's like, even if Clint Bowyer, in his mind, he's sitting there thinking, if I spin out, I give my teammate Martin Truex Jr. a chance. And it wasn't even, I wouldn't even call it a good chance, but a chance of making the chase. But I looked at it, I didn't really feel as though maybe it was a good enough chance for Clint Bowyer to want to take that risk. But who knows? Maybe he still might have been intentional. I don't really know what's going on inside Clint Bowyer's head. I don't think any of us do. It's kind of a little scrambled up in there, if you ask me. But so who knows what he was thinking? That might have been intentional, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how people feel about it from here. But that's about it, and that's all I really have for this episode. Looking ahead to next week at Chicagoland, you got, as I mentioned, you got Matt Kenseth's going to be your number 1 seed, followed closely, of course, by Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch. Here are I'm going to give you your full point standings here as we begin. Now that they restack here for the chase, you have Matt Kenseth first, then you have Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Carl Edwards, Joey Logano, Greg Biffle, Clint Bowyer, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kurt Busch, Casey Kane, and Martin Truex Jr. Those are your 12 chasers. I already mentioned to you who I think is going to be the biggest threats. I'm putting Matt Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, and I'd maybe throw Clint Bowyer's name into the mix as the top 5 biggest contenders for this championship. Next week at Chicagoland, I got to look at guys like Jimmy Johnson's going to be really good. I don't think Kyle Busch is going to have that great a race because, I don't know, he's kind of struggled at a few of the cookie-cutter mile-and-a-half tracks this year. Just remember Kansas where he spun out twice and not the best race there. You got to put Casey Kane in the mix. He's been strong on mile-and-a-half. Of course, Matt Kenseth, he's won 3 of the mile-and-a-half tracks this year, 3 of the mile-and-a-half races this year. I mean, you can't rule out Kyle Busch. He has won a couple mile-and-a-half tracks this year, but they've been different types. He's won at Texas and Atlanta where they have a little bit more banking in the corners, have the quad oval in the front. Whereas places like here in Chicagoland and Kentucky, Kansas, places like that, he's had a little bit more struggles. They're a little bit flatter, have the tri-oval, the curved tri-oval in the front. So they're definitely different tracks than Texas and Atlanta. So that's why I think Kyle Busch won't have the greatest race this weekend. Guys like Dale Jr., Clint Boyer, I think they'll have okay runs, but I'm not picking them to win. My pick to win is going to be Matt Kenseth, partially because I am a huge Matt Kenseth fan, but you got to look at the numbers. The other three, Matt Kenseth's won 5 races this year. 3 of them have been at tracks extremely similar to Chicagoland Speedway. So you just got to look at the numbers. I mean, I'm not trying to show favoritism here, but I got to be honest. I'm picking Matt Kenseth to win this race next weekend. He's won at Kentucky and Kansas, which I already mentioned are extremely similar to their racetrack in a lot of ways. And he also won at Las Vegas, which is a little different, but it's got the similar tri-oval. It's got maybe a little more banking in the corners, but I mean, you got to go with your gut here, and I'd have to say Matt Kenseth is definitely one of the solid picks. Jimmy Johnson's going to be a top pick as well, I believe, because I think he's got to turn his luck around. I mean, you can't expect the 5-time champion Jimmy Johnson to just be struggled this bad for more than 4 races in a row. That'd be unheard of. So that's about all I have here for today. Next weekend should be a good one, and I will leave a comment in the comment sections below, just asking questions that you want. Next week I'll be answering questions. I'll be reading comments that I like or stuff like that are good talking points. And it might be a little bit longer of an episode. This one looks like it's a little over 20 minutes, so it's not too bad. It'll be similar to this. But just hope you enjoyed it. This is just me giving my take. I would not by any means call myself a professional analyst or anything, but I mean, I've been watching NASCAR for a pretty long time, and I feel like I have a decent idea of the sport. So just like to give my opinions. I like to hear your opinions. So like I said, just leave a comment asking me a question about anything related to NASCAR or anything like that, and or just to post a comment about something you want me to talk about or want me to address, something like that. And I'll pick a handful of those and I'll read them and I'll talk about them next week on my next episode. So this marks the first of my reviews for my chase race reviews I'll be doing for the next 10 weeks as we round out the 2013 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series season. And that's about it. Other news that y'all would be curious in: the finale of the EE Cup Series Season 3 is going to be coming up in a few days. Expect it no later than this upcoming weekend, and it will be good. It's the finale. You got those 8 cars I talked about. They're all contending for championships. It's going to be an exciting race. Season 4 sign-ups will be uploaded in a few weeks, probably. Who knows? I might delay them. Don't get too mad at me. I am still finishing moving. This is a completely different bedroom. I have a pretty big bedroom actually now in my new house. It's a lot different than my old house. So I have a cardboard box right here. It hasn't even been unloaded yet. I got another like half dozen or so right over there that hasn't even been unloaded yet. So cut me some slack. Still getting through the change. I got a new high school and stuff I'm going to, so every last step is brand new. So if I have to, I might delay Season 4 signups a little bit, but I will definitely let y'all know the general time that they will be uploaded. So hopefully that answers all your questions. I will be seeing you guys all later. Hopefully, most likely, my next video will be the Season 4 finale, or Season 3 finale, sorry. Carl Edwards wins at Richmond Saturday night, and I'll be doing this again next week after Chicago. So, see you then.